You finally finished your story. It took years to write, caused a few gray hairs, and maybe cost a relationship or two. Just kidding. You're single as hell, but it's finally written and the whole story just feels forced. Like your parents' love or your last bowel movement. So then, what makes a story feel real? You have cool gadgets, magic, governments, lore. Why doesn't the story come to life? To answer this writing question, we're going to take a look at world building through the Attack on Titan lens, exploring how we subtly smother our audience in the story world, rules to follow in order to keep your world believable, and strategies to avoid boring an audience into the Shadow Realm where they tell all of their friends how much they hated your story. So, buckle into your ODM gear because we'll be covering a lot of ground today, starting with one of the most critical bits of world building. Nobody cares. Wait, hold on, that's mean. Here we go. There. That's better. Hear me out. Part of what makes anything beautiful and fun is the unknown. Birthday presents can be anything until you unwrap them. Skydiving is a blast because you're not 100% sure you will survive. That girl across the bar could be the love of your life, where she supports you emotionally and financially while you pursue your YouTube dreams. She raises your 2.5 kids, and wait, sorry. We don't approach women on this channel. And that's precisely my point. We, as observers, are interested in what could be far more than we are interested in what is. In Attack on Titan, we all understand the primary question posed at the story's beginning. Will humanity survive the Titans? But we also have some other mysteries about the story world that neither us nor our characters know the answers to. What are the Titans really? What is beyond the walls? Is it weird that Mikasa is in love with her adoptive brother? That kind of mystery is what makes a viewer keep coming back, because, like having certainty and security in a relationship, once we know exactly what is going on and what is going to happen, then there's no fun in sticking around. Ask my dad.
But Andrews, that doesn't tell me anything about world building. That's just a cheap way of reusing your old material. Dislike, unsubscribe.
Calm down, because the way this works in storytelling, especially if you're writing a book, comes down to this. Only show me the details I need to know.
Show me what you got!
Otherwise, let my imagination fill in the blanks. In Attack on Titan, we know the town looks like ye olde Germany, but with a few more walls and a lot less screaming. The exact architecture doesn't matter. The building materials don't matter. Well, at least not initially. Their currency system doesn't matter. Their government system doesn't matter. Their religion doesn't matter at the beginning of the story either. All that really matters is that we as audience members know that these systems exist, so that when they do come into play later on in the story, we go, oh yeah, that's been there this whole time. Let's keep the show going. This is mystery. Not the big sexy kind of mystery, the subtle kind. The kind that winks at you from across the room, but you think maybe she's just having problems with her contacts, so you just keep sipping your apple juice. It's storytelling that is detailed enough for your audience to follow, but not so obviously important that it feels like you're writing an encyclopedia entry. So, let's just get this next point out of the way while we're here. No info dumps. Info dumps are like regular dumps. They feel great for you as the writer giving them, but they stink up the house and clog your mother's plumbing. Info dumps are the opposite of subtle sexy. They're bursting out of the back room wearing nothing but a tube sock and carrying a rose between your teeth. This is not how we tell a story or approach women. Anymore. Now look, sure, some great movies and books have info dumps, aka prologues, and this goes to show that there are exceptions to every rule. Sometimes you can make a prologue seem like a tiny story, and sometimes they are necessary, like in Attack on Titan, when we have Armin's monologues. So that brings us to this little nugget of writing knowledge. Info dumps are best for saving time, not for revealing secrets, setting details, or character backstory. But then if we can't dump on our audience, not like that, how do we convey all the richness of our story world? Let's take a look at some of the different aspects of world building so that we can explore the methods Attack on Titan uses to sneak these details into the story organically. Everyone here has wanted their own ODM gear, their own 4-foot razor blades to shave their neckbeards, and the ability to jump. That's it, just jump. Exercise is hard. The technology of fantasy stories is one of the easiest ways to draw an audience member into your story, presenting something that makes a viewer say, I want one of those. So, naturally, the most important aspect of the stuff is how it works, right? Its fuel source, its gear ratio, its torque to horsepower. No, none of that. Remember rule number 1. Nobody cares. The most interesting thing about ODM gear is not how it works. Hell, I don't even know if it's mechanically feasible. I just want to watch it in action, which is your first strategy for painless world building. If you show me the technology in action, I'll just assume you know the engineering behind it. Yes, some Neil deGrasse Tyson fart is going to want the details, but overall, the whole point of fantasy is to write something, well, fantastic, and probably not possible. Also, if someone is upset with Spider-Man hip cannons and not a world with titans and mind control, that's their problem, not yours, and they need Jesus. Speaking of Jesus, let's move on to religion, history, and lore. This is one of my favorites, the stories in your stories. It's like putting a fudge brownie in a cake and covering it in ice cream. No, I don't mean a one-way ticket to diabetes, but a fast track to story depth and realism. Paradis has its own history. 100 years ago, the last remaining humans found this dope city in the middle of Madagascar and set up shop and didn't ask any questions because God is good, don't ask why. But how is this information delivered? Yes, some of this history is delivered through an Armin monologue, but additional information, and the way I would encourage you to tell history within a story, is in a tiny soundbite from a priest that gets nom 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 shortly thereafter. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in Attack on Titan, it's normal to have a town priest shouting damnation and the story of the walls. In your own story, it might be normal to have a mother read her son a bedtime story about a piece of lore. It might be normal for two siblings to discuss the gods, judging their life choices. Or it might be normal for a band of soldiers to break into a basement and read a journal entry from a dead doctor. The key, in my opinion, is to keep these initial world-building stories brief before getting into the necessary nitty-gritty. To build on this example, our first interaction with Paradis' history is disguised through a religious fanatic, and we have a few more interactions with Pastor Nick and his followers before the walls are ever discovered as being titans. Think of this like leading your audience into a trap with breadcrumbs. We have a tiny story, another tiny story, and another tiny story, and a big reveal, at which point your viewer is starting to look for the entire loaf of bread as the trapdoor closes and wham! We hit him with a well-disguised info dump.
But Andrews, you just said,
I know what I said about info dumps, Kevin, but we earned this info dump. The audience wanted to hear it this time because they were interested, and here's why. As viewers, we make small, unknowing investments into the history of the walls before we are ever given a real reason to be curious about them. When the walls are revealed to be titans, we want to know more. And also, we feel really stupid because this detail is literally shown in several title pages. Nobody said I was observant. But, at any rate, let's move on to a third pillar of world building, which rests heavily on history and religion, which is society and culture. A big thing that I love about Attack on Titan is that the show is an insanely well thought out overview of human nature. Individuals have drives like love, curiosity, duty, and an inescapable reality that nothing done will ever alter the future. But society, whether it's the Eldians of Paradis or Marley, or the Marleyans themselves, have their own personality. Think of your story society as its own character, but it has the ability to speak through your side characters as well. Now hold on, that sounds cryptic as hell. Let me explain. Eldians on Marley feel guilty for what their ancestors did and often refer to themselves as good Eldians for hanging around for the abuse. While this mentality resonates with my love language, it helps me to see Gabby adopt this mindset as the top candidate for the Armored Titan. Her mindset exemplifies the thoughts of Eldian society in Marley. Similarly, Flock was a beautifully crafted villain because he represented the average person on Paradis, the leader of the flock, if you will. He was a character that was expendable, knew his life could be cut short at any moment, and took the path of least resistance to keep it preserved. So, while society is a mass of people with shared beliefs, religions, or histories, we don't have to dive into the minds of each person. We get our sense of a people's culture through the thoughts and actions of a single side character. It's like the transitive property, but I know we all flushed Algebra 1 back in high school, so I think of it a little bit more like guilt through association. Society thinks this way, therefore, this one character speaks these thoughts into the story to make it feel natural. Now, if you don't have room for another character, which is hard to believe when you look at Attack on Titan's cast, but let's just say you don't or can't use a character's voice naturally in a scene, never forget that you can always use newspapers, book titles, or even posters on a wall to show the common sentiment of the society at large. As an example, let's just say somehow, Paradis got a copy of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and everybody somehow understood it despite not knowing what black people were. If the play were performed and received well, it would show a society tolerance for others. If it were not received well, then there are so many creative ways to show how the mob thinks, and I would recommend you use a mix of all of them, because it gives your story world layers and complexity, just like any other character, which is our final point. Your story world is a character, and therefore changes and grows. You're 12 years old, life is good, girls are icky, you don't smell funny, and your skin is smooth. But then you blow out those 13 candles and the puberty witch kicks in your teeth, and now everything you've known is a lie. Girls are cool. You stink unless you rub yourself with a stick, and every day is another cataclysmic event filled with rage, because every pair of pants you wear makes it look like you're pitching a tent. When you changed, your world changed.
But Andrews, Aaron never changes. He always wants freedom and safety for his friends. How are you so dumb? And what do you mean by pitch a tent?
You're right. Aaron's want doesn't change. But what he would have to do, how far he would have to go to achieve this want, does change. Would he be willing to kill a mindless titan? Sure. Well, let's fill the world with hostile titans. What about a person? Could Aaron and the gang people pop a bunch of them? Looks like it. Well then, let's make them the villain for Act 2. Okay, well, what if it turned out that, the whole world hated Aaron and his ragtag team of katana-wielding Spider-Men? Could he trample a planet? Look at how the story world expands in order to push Aaron closer to the dark side. Aaron's primary opponent is always some force greater than the world he knows. As he comes to better understand his world, his enemy changes, as does the lens through which he sees Attack on Titan's story world. In your own writing, as a hero grows, develops, and changes, your goal is to create a story world that continually applies pressure on your hero. Whether it's natural disasters, monsters, or people, something needs to stand in the way of your hero achieving their goal. The moment that pressure is alleviated, the tension goes slack, and the story abruptly ends. Much like this video. Thank you for your support, guys. There's more to world building than I managed to cover in this video, so leave a comment if you want me to do a follow-up video, or just make a suggestion because I have no clue what you guys like. Check out my book, it's good, and until next time, keep writing the best stories possible. Ba-na-na-na, na-na-na, na-na-na-na-na, the end.